The village of Kundu sat at the edge of a great forest, its mud huts clustered together like birds seeking warmth. The air was thick with the scent of dust, smoke, and the lingering aroma of groundnut soup. Women pounded millet in wooden mortars, their voices rising in song as they walked. Barefoot children ran through the narrow paths, their laughter ringing in the fading light of the evening. But in a small hut at the far end of the village, a woman sat in silence. Nora's fingers moved steadily, weaving dried palm fronds into a basket. Her hands knew the work well, she had done it since she was a child. Yet, tonight, her mind wandered. Her eyes flickered toward her children, Amoni and Kofi, who sat cross-legged on the ground, playing a quiet game with pebbles. Their clothes were faded, their feet dusty. They were thin, too thin. Nora swallowed the tightness in her throat. It had been 2 years since Bakery, her husband, had died. He had been a hunter, strong and full of life, until the sickness came. It took him quickly, like a flame snuffed out by the wind. And with him, it had taken the steady flow of food, the laughter that once filled their home, and the ease of knowing tomorrow would not bring hunger. Now, every day was a battle. Nora worked hard. She tilled the small plot of land her husband had left behind, but the soil had grown tired. The rains had been unkind, coming too late or not at all. The little millet she harvested barely lasted a few months. When that ran out, she worked for others, pounding grain, carrying water, washing clothes, anything to earn a few coins. But even that was not enough. She had learned to ignore her own hunger. A mother must always put her children first. The pot on the fire bubbled softly, but Nora knew the porridge inside was thin. Too thin. It was the last of their millet. Tomorrow, she would need to find more food. Amoni looked up from her game, her large, dark eyes filled with quiet concern. "Mama, will you eat too?" Nora forced a smile. "I am not hungry, my child." She had said it so many times that even she almost believed it. She ladled the porridge into 3 small calabash bowls, setting them before her children. They ate slowly, savoring each bite, knowing there would be no second helping. Outside, the village settled into the night. Fires dimmed, voices softened, and the sounds of drums carried from the village square. The elders told stories beneath the great baobab tree, their voices deep and wise, weaving lessons into every tale. But Nora did not go to listen. She had heard the stories all her life. Stories of spirits that walked the land, of ancestors who watched over them, of powerful objects hidden in the world, waiting for the right hands to find them. She had never given much thought to such tales. Hunger did not care for magic. But that night, as she lay on the thin mat beside her children, staring at the thatched roof above her, she thought of the forest. The elders warned that it was a place of mystery, that spirits whispered through its trees. People ventured in for firewood or to hunt, but few strayed too deep. It was said that some who did never returned. Yet, what choice did she have? She could not let her children go another day with empty stomachs. The wild yams that sometimes grew near the tree roots could be enough for a meal. And if she was lucky, she might find fallen fruit or even a small animal caught in a trap left by careless hunters. Yes. Tomorrow, she would go. She closed her eyes, trying to push away the hunger, the worry, the weight of it all. The night was cool, the wind carrying the scent of damp earth and burning wood. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted. The drums from the village square continued, their rhythm steady, like a heartbeat. And then, just as sleep began to take her, she thought she heard something else. A faint hum. Low, deep, like the whisper of thunder before a storm. Nora's eyes snapped open. She listened, her heart pounding. Silence. Perhaps it had been a dream. Shaking her head, she turned on her side and pulled her children close. Tomorrow would be another long day. She did not know that her life was about to change forever. She did not know that the drum had already begun calling to her. And she did not know that in the shadows of the forest, unseen eyes were waiting. The morning sun stretched its golden fingers across the village of Kundu, painting the mud huts in warm light. The air was crisp, carrying the distant sounds of roosters crowing and women singing as they pounded grain. Smoke curled lazily from kitchen fires, and children ran through the dusty paths, chasing each other with playful shrieks. But in the small hut at the edge of the village, Nora did not wake with the others. She had barely slept. The strange hum from the night before still lingered in her mind, though she tried to convince herself it was nothing, just the wind, or a dream woven from hunger. But even as she told herself this, something deep inside whispered that it was more. She pushed the thought away. There were more pressing things to worry about. Her children stood beside her, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Their bellies were empty, their faces dull with hunger. Amoni, her daughter, sat up first, looking at her with quiet understanding. "Mama," she said softly, "will we eat today?" Nora forced a smile, though her heart ached. "Yes, my child." She did not know where the food would come from, but she refused to let them see her fear. She rose and wrapped her worn cloth tightly around her waist. Today, she would go to the forest. She had ventured there many times before to gather firewood, but never too deep, never beyond the safe paths that the villagers used. The elders warned against it. They spoke of old spirits that roamed beneath the ancient trees, of creatures that did not belong to the world of men. But hunger had a way of silencing fear. She filled a small calabash with water, slung an empty basket over her shoulder, and kissed her children's heads. "Stay here," she told them. "I will return before the sun is high." With that, she stepped out into the cool morning air and made her way toward the towering trees that loomed beyond the village. The moment Nora stepped past the last hut, a strange feeling settled in her chest. The village behind her was full of life, voices, movement. But the forest ahead felt different. It was quiet. Too quiet. The trees stood tall and ancient, their twisted roots clawing through the earth like the fingers of old spirits. The air here was cooler, carrying the scent of damp leaves and something else, something older, untouched by time. Nora tightened her grip on her basket and took a deep breath. She could not afford to be afraid. She moved carefully, her bare feet pressing into the soft earth. She searched the ground for wild yams, for fallen fruit, for anything that could be turned into a meal. At first, she found nothing. Then, as she walked deeper, she spotted something beneath the roots of a great baobab tree, small, round, and golden. A fruit. Relief flooded her. She hurried toward it, reaching out. But just as her fingers brushed the skin, a sound filled the air. A low, deep hum. Nora froze. The sound was unlike anything she had ever heard. It was not the wind, not an animal, not the rustling of leaves. It was something else, something alive. She turned her head slowly, her breath catching in her throat. And that was when she saw it. Half buried beneath the roots of the tree, hidden beneath layers of dirt and leaves, was an object unlike anything she had ever seen. A drum. Its wooden surface was carved with strange patterns that seemed to twist and move in the dappled light. Its skin was smooth, stretched tightly, shimmering like water under the sun. Nora's heart pounded. Who had left it here? She glanced around, suddenly feeling exposed. Had someone buried it? Was it a forgotten relic? A cursed object? Her grandmother had once told her stories of drums that carried the voices of spirits, drums that could bring fortune or disaster. Nora hesitated. She should leave it. She should turn back now, return to the village, and pretend she never saw it. But then she thought of her children. Of their empty stomachs. Of the promise she had made to them this morning. Slowly, cautiously, she reached out and brushed the dirt away. The drum was surprisingly clean beneath the soil, as if it had not been there long. Someone had hidden it recently. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it. The moment her hands touched the wood, the hum returned, low, deep, vibrating through her bones. And then, a whisper. I am not yours to keep, yet I am yours to hold. Beware, for I bring both fortune and war. Nora gasped, dropping the drum. It landed with a soft thud, sending a small cloud of dust into the air. She spun around, her heart hammering. But the forest remained still. No one was there. Only the trees, watching in silence. Nora's breathing was unsteady. Had she imagined it? Was her hunger playing tricks on her mind? But no, she had heard it. Felt it. The drum lay at her feet, waiting. She should leave it. She knew she should. But something inside her whispered otherwise. Her hands shook as she bent down and picked it up again. The drum was light, yet it felt heavy with unseen power. She swallowed hard. Then, without thinking, she raised a trembling hand and struck it once. A deep, rolling sound filled the air. It was not like any drum she had ever heard. It was like the earth itself was answering, like the sky had opened and was listening. The ground beneath her feet trembled. A warm wind swept through the trees, carrying the scent of something sweet, something rich, like ripe fruit and honey. Then, as quickly as it had come, the feeling vanished. The forest returned to its usual quiet, as if nothing had happened. Nora staggered back, gripping the drum tightly. She did not know what she had just done. But she did know one thing. This drum was not ordinary. And she was no longer alone. From the shadows beyond the trees, unseen eyes were watching. Nora moved swiftly through the forest, the drum clutched tightly in her arms. Her feet pressed into the soft earth, leaving shallow prints behind. The morning sun had risen higher now, filtering through the thick canopy, casting dappled patterns on the ground. The air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and distant rain. But Nora felt none of the forest's beauty. Her heart pounded, her breath uneven. She could not shake the feeling that something unseen lurked in the trees, watching her every step. The weight of the drum in her hands was light, yet it felt like she carried something far heavier, something that did not belong to her. She had not meant to take it. She had only wanted food for her children, yet here she was, carrying an object that whispered to her, that sent shivers through her skin. She glanced down at it as she walked. The wood was smooth beneath her fingers, the carvings strange and twisting. The drum skin gleamed under the sunlight, though she could not tell what it was made of. It looked old. Ancient. Yet it had been buried as if someone had placed it there recently. A gift from the spirits. A warning. She did not know. But she did know one thing: she had struck the drum once, and the world had felt different. The air had shifted. The ground had trembled. And now, she was certain she was being followed. She quickened her steps. The village was not far now. Just beyond the next clearing, past the bend where the river curved like a snake through the land. The trees rustled behind her. Nora froze. The sound was soft, almost like the wind, but not quite. The hairs on her arms stood. She turned her head slightly, listening. Silence. But the silence was too deep, too unnatural. She forced herself to keep walking, though her legs felt heavy. Another rustle. Closer this time. Nora spun around. Nothing. Only trees, towering and unmoving. The forest was still, too still. Even the birds had gone quiet. She swallowed hard. Was it an animal? A hunter? A spirit? Or was it someone who had been looking for the drum? A shiver ran down her spine. She clutched the drum tighter and moved faster, her bare feet barely making a sound on the damp earth. She did not look back again. She would reach the village soon. Then she would be safe. But what Nora did not know was that the eyes following her did not belong to one person. There were many. Hidden in the shadows, crouched behind trees, men watched her every move. They had been searching for the drum for days. It was no ordinary drum. It was a relic of war, stolen from the battlefield between two powerful villages, Zon and Bomodi. It held a power neither side fully understood, but they knew one thing: whoever controlled the drum would control the tide of war. The warrior who had carried it last had hidden it, hoping to retrieve it after the battle. But now, it was in the hands of a poor widow who knew nothing of the chaos she had just stepped into. The watchers did not move yet. They had seen what she had done. She had struck the drum, and the land itself had answered. They had felt the shift in the air, the whisper of something ancient awakening. This was no longer just a search for a stolen artifact. Now, the drum had chosen her. And that meant only one thing. She would not be allowed to live with it. Nora finally reached the edge of the forest. The sight of the village huts in the distance filled her with relief. The familiar sounds of voices, of goats bleating, of firewood cracking under pots, it was all there, waiting for her. She hurried across the open field, her legs aching. She just wanted to be home. To sit with her children. To pretend, for a moment, that today was no different from any other day. But as she approached her hut, something felt wrong. The village was not as lively as before. People stood in small groups, whispering. Some glanced at her, then quickly looked away. She slowed her steps. What had happened? She reached her hut and pushed aside the cloth hanging at the entrance. Amoni and Kofi were sitting inside, but they were not alone. An elder sat before them, his wrinkled hands resting on his knees. His eyes, sharp and knowing, lifted to meet hers. Nora's heart sank. Elder Boko. A man who rarely spoke, yet when he did, his words carried weight. He had seen many seasons, and some whispered that he had walked the land long before even the oldest trees of the forest had grown. His gaze fell upon the drum in her hands. Nora hesitated. She did not speak, but he already knew. He sighed deeply, as if he had been expecting this moment for a long time. You have brought something dangerous into this village, he said quietly. Nora's grip tightened on the drum. I only found it, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I did not mean to take it. Elder Boko shook his head. It does not matter what you meant. The drum does not belong to you. Nora felt her chest tighten. I will return it, she said quickly. Tomorrow, I will take it back to the forest. The elder's face darkened. No, child. It is too late for that. A heavy silence filled the hut. Outside, the village still whispered. People were afraid. They had felt the change, just as Nora had. And then, before she could ask what he meant, the sound of distant horns filled the air. Low, deep, and unrelenting. Nora's blood ran cold. She knew that sound. It was the call of warriors. A warning that enemies were near. The village was no longer safe. And it was because of her. Beyond the village, on the dusty horizon, figures began to emerge. Men. Armed, moving like shadows, their weapons gleaming under the midday sun. They were coming. For the drum. For her. For blood. And there was nowhere left to run. Subscribe to Ogologo the Storyteller for more interesting African folktales and story.